Hey guys, Scott Layton here, My Expat Life, Renaissance Spirit channel. Thank you for joining me. Today I am giving you my week 4 update and recap. Since I've been here in Tirana, Albania, today is the end of my 4th week. And I also wanted to discuss having a bad day. It's been a very strange month, and I'll get into some of the details. If you haven't watched my full podcast on My Expat Life, I'm not going to go and get into everything that's happened in this video. I don't want to make it that long. And my videos and my shorts, including my full-length videos, are all sequential and serialized, so you're not really going to go and appreciate everything unless you've watched them all, especially the full-length videos. The shorts are more just little tidbits or things that I think about as I walk or come up with some idea or concept in my head. So let me just give you some background in case you haven't watched. Just a quick recap. I got to the airport like around 11:30 p.m. on the 6th of December. My flight was delayed. I didn't want to come into Tirana itself, the city proper, until the next morning because I didn't get out of the airport until like around midnight. It was dark, I was tired, I hadn't slept for over 24 hours at that point. I just got a hotel room for the night, and then that next morning on Sunday the 7th, I went and got into the city itself. And I've been here in my Airbnb where I'm filming today. I'm gonna go and give you a tour and explain why this is part of the reason I'm in such a bad mood today. But just in brief, one of the reasons that I moved from America to Albania was because I was looking for a better, more intentional life. I created this channel, The Renaissance Spirit, partly for myself, partly for you, and also partly for posterity. What I mean by that is I wanted to live a more intentioned, thoughtful life for myself. I wanted to be the person that I wanted to eventually become. I wanted to be a Renaissance spirit. I wanted to be a person who looked at things from different perspectives, a person who was reasoned and compassionate. I wanted to be able to go and provide my journey to you. And that's why I created my series, My Expat Life. Prior to this, I was doing most of my videos as faceless, using B-roll or things like that normally. Sometimes I would film things, but you wouldn't see me often on camera. Part of that was also because I wasn't happy with my weight. I ended up gaining a lot of weight during the pandemic, and I've lost over 100 pounds in 2025, as you'll see if you watch any of my other earlier vlogs before My Expat Life. But the third reason was because I wanted to chronicle what it was like living in the world today for posterity, for future generations. Because I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be asking in the future, why did we put up with the things that are happening in the world today? And a lot of what you end up seeing in media, whether it's news, whether it's influencers, is just a lot of like marketing, kind of quick positivity kind of things. And I wanted to be honest, I wanted to be upfront. I wanted people to realize that, yeah, many of us are hurting. Many of us want a better life for ourselves and for others. And all that is kind of why I created this channel in the first place. So I'm going to go and talk about my framework on how to deal with a bad day in relation to my week 4 update. So most of this is going to be completely unscripted. Most of my vlogs are unscripted except for my explainer components. So let me just go and start with where I am and what I'm calling My Expat Life, the Renaissance Spirit Guide to a Bad Day and Week 4 Update. I'm trying to look at having a bad day from a more reasoned, compassionate perspective. And that's the purpose of this video more than anything else. I think a lot of us don't know how to deal with our emotions, and I've certainly had issues with dealing with them before. And I want to take a more reasoned, compassionate approach with dealing with them. Because really, guys, I mean, you can't discount your emotions. You can't ignore them. You have to be honest and upfront with what you're feeling and how you deal with it. So that's really the purpose of today's video. The first thing that I want to address is we have to understand what we're thinking and feeling about it. What makes it bad and what is our reaction to it and why is it negative? What was the trigger? What gave us that initial response? And how do we want to deal with it? And we'll discuss that later. But so let me talk to you about why I'm having a bad day. Nothing specifically bad happened to me so far today. It is, I think, 11 o'clock already. 11 a.m. here in beautiful downtown Tirana, Albania. A couple of triggers that kind of threw me off. I created a video yesterday that I spent pretty much all day on. And let me look at my stats. It didn't get nearly the views I thought it would or should. I called it Joy on Demand, and it was a guide to help us to remember and relive certain senses. For example, I used the example that coffee and chocolate are becoming more expensive. If you partake in either, you probably already know that. One of the reasons is because of tariffs. One of the reasons is because of climate change. Things like coffee and chocolate might become very, very rare and valuable in the future, to the point where it's not one of those things that we should take for granted. So, as I discussed in my video yesterday, moving to a new country, there are certain things that you can't get here that I took for granted back home. I miss Archway Christmas cookies. It was a tradition my mom used to go and buy for us every year, and I just love them. I mean, it's just one of those simple little things that bring me joy, but I can't get them here. And I was doing research scientifically, philosophically, on how one could better remember a taste or other senses. And that's the purpose of the video yesterday. I think it's very, very helpful. I think if more of you watched it, you'd really get some joy and appreciation out of it. And it really hurts to create videos that nobody ever watches. So the video got 5 views so far, a lot lower than normal. And again, I'm not doing this channel because I'm trying to get rich. I don't want to be rich. I just want to be happy and hopefully make people's lives better and give people different ways of looking at things. But so that was one of the reasons that I'm upset and kind of blah today. The other reason was of a comment that someone made yesterday, and I don't think they meant anything bad by it, but it was in relation to my expectations and what I wanted for my life here. And someone thinking that I wasn't being cognizant of what it was like for Albanians. And as I mentioned in one of my other videos on my reaction, I'll put the card up above, I know it's very, very difficult for a lot of people in Albania. I know that things are very, very expensive here. I know that unemployment is close to 10%. People have very little labor rights. They are working construction sometimes in the middle of the night. I know because I hear them working. I've seen them working. And I know that people back home in America live in sometimes very, very bad situations. The economy might be going gangbusters and the GDP in America is going great. But that doesn't mean that most of us feel it. For the most part, a lot of life expectancy is going down. Quality of life is going down. And people aren't living the life that they could or should because of constraints like, bread and butter issues. If you can't afford to live a happy life, I mean, it's difficult. It's not a problem of one country. It's a problem that we all face, unless you're one of those tech bros that are making cash off of everybody else, which I'm certainly not. And to that end, I just wanted to be honest with you. I wanted to show you what my numbers were for December. I am a frugal man because I have absolutely no choice in the matter, but I would be anyway, because that's who I am. But as you can see from my stats, I hope you can see this. I'm showing you my December numbers. Okay guys, so I'm showing you my stats for December of 2025. Let me zoom in a little bit. So I ended up getting about 78,000 views, which was 510% more than October, November of the same period, end of October to November 30th. Watch time was 585 hours, 45% increase, and all of that is basically due to My Expat Life. Subscribers, I ended up getting 75. Thank you very much, guys. And my estimated revenue for December of 2025 was $34.75. So yeah, I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination. I'm living a very frugal life by choice, but also because I need to. Until I am officially old enough to be able to, I'm 55 now, start getting disbursements for my 401k. I'm basically living off of my YouTube and my savings. I was originally saving to buy a house, which I was looking at properties back in 2020 before the pandemic hit. So, kind of bad timing on my part, I guess, right? But it's strange how things work out. But yeah, I didn't come to Albania to take advantage of the locals. I specifically went and picked something that was reasonable. I tried to come here to meet and interview. I've actually went and reached out to a few people to interview to see what life was like here for them. I wanted to contribute to society. I wanted to do volunteer work. And one of the reasons I'm upset, and it's been bothering me since I got here, was that I wasn't informed that I wasn't eligible for the unique permit unless I had a contract, unless I was employed by someone other than myself. So my YouTube channel didn't count towards that. I wish I would have known that before coming here. So that's why on my big reaction video, I expressed that I will stay here. I will leave after my 1 year. Americans are allowed to stay in Albania for up to a year, visa-free. I will go somewhere else. I will then probably come back for another year and just do the visa jumping game until I turn 59 and a half and I can start taking my 401k disbursements. And then as an American, assuming that it still exists, I will go and start taking Social Security at 62. So that's my plan. My channel was never about, becoming rich. My channel was never about becoming an influencer. I know the stuff that I talk about isn't ever gonna get me rich. And that's fine. But I think that I have a message to convey that might help other people. And again, give posterity an idea of what some of us were thinking about at this era. So, the other reason that I'm a little upset, I'm gonna go and turn the camera around, is because this Airbnb really isn't conducive to my health. The reason I've been coughing so much, guys, is because I ended up getting bronchitis around Christmas, and I've been sick ever since. I don't know if you can see, but there's black mold on the walls here. There is condensation and water just pooling on the windowsills. I had to move my bag twice, my backpack, because the water just went and got my backpack all wet. The close clip was what I used to keep the window open. As you can see, I could hang my clothes outside, but there is like a 20 to 30 feet drop, so I decided not to actually do that, because if they fell off the clothesline, I would never see those clothes again. All I brought with me was the suitcase and my Rick Steves backpack from when I was 20 years old. I'm coughing a lot, guys, because my bronchitis is much better. My back is also much better today, but apparently it's all coming up. I was taking an expectorant for the past 4 or 5 days. I apologize about the mess. I did laundry last night, and I don't have anywhere to hang my clothes, again, because of the clothesline outside. So I just have some clothes hanging out here. I have all of my computer supplies on this table, so it's pretty much useless to use for anything else unless I want to repack it up in my bags and unpack it. This is where I sleep. I have a washer but no dryer, so I put my clothes here. I don't have enough hangers for everything, but such is life, right? And the bathroom situation. If you can see, there isn't any ledge. The shower area is flat with the rest of the bathroom, and it always makes a mess every time I take a shower. And I was at one point in time just trying to mop it up with a towel, but then I ended up staining the towel, so I'm not doing that anymore. There is a small little ventilation in the bathroom, which doesn't work very well. There is absolutely no other ventilation in this unit whatsoever. So the only way I can get any type of air is by opening the window, which probably just makes the mold situation even worse. I would have turned the air conditioning on, not the air, well, the heat, the air conditioning and heater are up the same unit, but I didn't want to do that for today's video because it's so loud. So in case you're wondering why I'm wearing a jacket and wearing shorts, there you can see me. I'm not doing it to impress, I'm doing it because I'm cold. My upper body is cold today. It's just everything has been kind of a comedy of errors. Everything has been a little bit harder than it should be. My eczema and psoriasis have been awful since I got in country. I finally broke down and bought some CeraVe yesterday. You would not believe the price. It came to 2,400 lek, or $29.17 for this small little container. I can't believe it, but hopefully that'll help my complexion. I haven't looked this bad in ages. So yeah, I realize that a lot of you are probably thinking, yeah, some American and his first world problems, you know. And I completely understand what you're saying. I tried to come to Albania because I wanted to lower my carbon footprint. I wanted to have less of an impact on the world. I didn't realize of the housing shortage in this country, and the taking up an Airbnb, for example, in a place like Tirana was bad because so many people can't afford to live in the city as it is, even though they are building tons and tons of properties, like the building across the street. Construction here is just incredible. There's day and night they're building something, including the fact that the restaurant underneath me, I'm on the, what they would call the European third floor in this building. The ground floor has a restaurant that they are renovating, and they start doing construction sometimes as early as 7 o'clock in the morning. I wish my Airbnb landlord would have informed me of that as well. I haven't been sleeping very well either since I got here. But I am going to be leaving Tirana at the end of January. I've already paid for December and January, so at this point I might as well stay. Again, because I really don't have the money to, you know, just waste. I'm spending, I think, close to $600, $660 a month, something like that. I don't remember, I'll have to look it up. But I'll go to a smaller town or village from here on in, places that have more available housing, so I'm not hurting the locals, as I may be doing here in Tirana. So those are just some of the kind of things that I've just been upset about. Not being able to drink out of the spigot because the water isn't potable. It's not safe to drink, which might also be one of the reasons I'm sick, because I've had to, like brushing my teeth, you know. I didn't want to, you know, use bottled water. I never buy bottled water until I came here, really. I always thought it was just bad for the environment, you know. Expense. It didn't really make any sense. But that's all I'm doing here. So I've been brushing my teeth with the faucet water, which I probably shouldn't. So, I mean, it could be my fault that I'm sick. Although I do think that I probably ended up getting sick, bronchitis, from the Christmas Eve vigil. There were thousands of people there. It was really nice. Not that I got sick, but, you know, the mass, I mean. And the pageant before that, little choral concert with the kids. But, so yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that my problems are as significant as some others. Certainly not. And that is one of the reasons I wanted to create this video. So on to my point that I was trying to make. Context is very important, guys. And I will get to that in a second. But let's talk about how we should, as a Renaissance spirit or as a human, trying to live a full human experience, which means, you know, appreciating and understanding ourselves and our emotions and trying to synthesize those two together. The first thing we need to do is understand what we're actually thinking or feeling and why. Write it down. Have a conversation with someone else, or a dialogue, an inner dialogue with yourself. So many people don't give themselves the opportunity to really understand and express what they're thinking and feeling. I think that's very, very important. Appreciate that we don't always have control over our initial emotions and our initial emotional reactions or things to triggers, of what makes us upset. But we do have a duty to acknowledge what we are feeling and to understand them and then deal with them instead of just ignoring them or discounting them or saying that they're not important, because context matters, guys. And we have to understand that a true person who is thoughtful and reasoned, compassionate, tries to synthesize their intellect with their emotions. You can't be one without the other in what I'm calling the Renaissance spirit lifestyle or philosophy, if you will. The next thing I want to discuss is what I'm calling the perspective paradox. Realize first, as part of the human condition, we all have good days and bad days. I think we all appreciate that sentiment, right? And don't dismiss yourself. You deserve the grace of actually dealing with what you're thinking and feeling. I'm gonna read the rest of this, so let me just move the phone so you can. Our reactions and our emotions are warranted because we do feel them, we do think them. They may be insignificant to others, but they're still important to us as individuals. But we do then need to zoom out and look at the larger perspective, the larger picture. Where do our issues compare to others? Is our plight better or worse than others? Back to what I was saying earlier. Are issues or the things that make us feel bad, are they the same as most people feel? Or are we just reacting or overreacting to something and making a mountain out of a molehill? I think we all have had moments in days where we just overreacted to things without really thinking or understanding or feeling, what that was in relation. Humility and conscience comes into play with all of this. If we're upset about something in our life, whether or not something is where we want to be or what happened to us, or someone ghosting us or losing a job, etc. That may not be the same thing as living in a war zone or a famine or a person who's in severe pain or dying. I'm not saying to discount what we're thinking or feeling. Our struggles may not compare to those in war zones or in famine, but that doesn't mean they're not real. And the context is important because we don't know what it's like, at least in this perspective, in this moment in our lives, other than the life that we are currently living. Perspective isn't about shame, it's about context. It reminds us to be both grateful and grounded in what we're thinking. But that doesn't mean that we should ignore or discount what we are thinking and feeling. The moment we become dismissive of ourselves is the moment that we lose sight of our reality and the opportunity to hope and pray for a better life. So once we do that zooming out and look at a more empathetic view of what others are going through, we can remind ourselves at that point that no feeling is final and no state of being is permanent. Now, before we decide to respond to whatever we're feeling, once we've synthesized, with our intellect and, thought about it, find at least one thing today that you can be thankful for, or something that you can be grateful for, even if that's just you thinking about your emotions and coming up with a more positive path on dealing with them. Because I certainly have had moments before where I just, some trigger happens and then you just get upset and you just make things worse. So the next important thing for us to do is decide how we want to react. How can we change the situation for ourselves to make it better? Whether that's meditation, taking a walk, getting some exercise, getting that new job, moving, etc. So in my case, I've decided that I'm not going to stay in Tirana, like I said. Another reason is because the city has been so crazy loud. I haven't been able to sleep. I want to go somewhere quieter. I want to live a more contemplative life, and I can't do that here in Tirana, to be honest with you. And honestly, I'm thinking about whether or not I should be doing as many videos as I am. I just don't know if I'm having enough of an impact to warrant me creating and spending so much time on these videos. My next point is, what's one small, honest action we can do today that aligns with the Renaissance spirit we want to become? That helps us to put not only our emotions in perspective, but gives us a path forward. And I think it's important to find or create something today or any day that you need to reorient yourself after having some bad emotion or a bad day that truly creates awe for yourself and possibly for others. That's why I wanted to do this video today. I wanted to not only help myself, but hopefully help you guys. And I'm going to go and put a handout in the description. I'll put a card up to link to my website on this that talks about these things and a step-by-step approach on how to deal with bad days. And I hope it brings you comfort and puts things in perspective for you as well. And after that awe, I think it's possible for us to go and hope that tomorrow will be better, because more than likely it probably will be. And imagine and create a path for yourself to be able to achieve it. I think that's all for now, guys. I think that's enough. I promised you yesterday on my long video that only got 5 views that I would be doing a part 2 to that on how to do lucid dreaming, working on intentions in your dreams, and then also help on recall of dreams. If that video from yesterday gets more than 100 views, I will do that video on dreams. But at this point, I'm going to hold off. So we'll kind of see how things go, and I think that's all for now. Take care, guys. Have a great day. I am cold. I'm going to turn my air conditioning, turn the heater on, and try to relax a little bit. Take care, and have a blessed day.